Tuesday, leaving hundreds dead and thousands injured. The risk of an all-out war continues as Hezbollah fires back around 100 rockets into Israel. The number of babies born in July in South Korea marked the largest on-year increase for the month in 12 years. More people tied the knot as well, marking the record high increase for any July. The OECD says the global economy is turning the corner, with the growth expected to remain resilient at 3.2% both in 2024 and 2025. It projects South Korea's economy to grow 2.5% this year with robust chip demand. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We begin with escalating conflict in the Middle East. In Lebanon, more than 500 people have been killed so far as the deadly Israeli attack continues. Meanwhile, Hezbollah fired a rocket towards its target near Tel Aviv. Peunji brings the latest. Warning sirens sounded in Israel's economic capital of Tel Aviv on Wednesday, sending residents to bomb shelters, as a missile was intercepted by the country's air defense systems after it was detected crossing from Lebanon. The Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon said Wednesday that it fired a ballistic missile, targeting the headquarters of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency, in direct revenge for the walkie-talkie and pager attacks last week. The Israeli military said this is the first time that a missile fired by Hezbollah has reached close to the city. The attack also comes after Hezbollah confirmed that its senior commander, Ibrahim Kubaish, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday. Israel has been carrying out Operation Northern Arrows this week, conducting airstrikes targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon since Monday, killing at least 569 people, including children.
My children and I were at home, working and relying on God for support when the Israeli enemy hit us. They are just children.
The attack continued for the third day on Wednesday in parts of Lebanon. The Israeli military said Wednesday that it was carrying out another wave of airstrikes in southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley, noting that it had targeted Hezbollah operatives, dozens of weapon depots, including those storing cruise missiles and launchers for precision missiles. As the fighting intensifies, tens of thousands of Lebanese have fled their homes, with many crossing into neighboring Syria. But Israel vowed to continue its attacks.
We will continue to hit Hezbollah. And I say to the people of Lebanon, our war is not with you. Our war is with Hezbollah.
As the international community works to reduce tensions in the region, Lebanon says the United States is the only country that can end the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. After U.S. President Joe Biden made an address at the UN General Assembly in New York that full-scale war is not in anyone's interest, Lebanon's foreign minister criticized the remarks, saying it's not strong and not promising. Peunji, Arirang News. In New York, world leaders have gathered for this year's UN General Assembly, seeking to address global challenges. Conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine are likely to top the agenda. Tae-yul has more.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres denounced on Tuesday local time a growing number of governments and other groups who feel they are entitled to get out of jail-free card, citing wars in Ukraine, the Gaza Strip, and Sudan. He called the conflict in Ukraine a war spreading with no signs of letting up, with civilians paying the price, and also reaffirmed his condemnation of abhorrent acts of terror committed by Hamas.
The level of impunity in the world is politically indefensible and morally intolerable. They can trample international law. They can violate the United Nations Charter. They can turn a blind eye to international human rights conventions or the decisions of international courts.
World leaders raised concerns on the major spike in violence in Lebanon. Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu condemned Israeli acts of terrorism, saying those are interpreted as nothing but brutal attacks. Jordan's King Abdullah II called on the global community to address the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza, where more than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed.
We have seen that clearly in the dangerous developments in Lebanon over the past few days. This has to stop.
While there was a majority of voices raising concerns over the need to address international conflicts, no specific solutions were suggested. Speeches on Israel and Palestine, a main area of concern, will be held on Thursday local time. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
Also in New York, delegations representing South Korea and the US both condemned the illegal weapons trade between Russia and North Korea, saying that such action violated the UNSC resolutions. Our Issue reports.
South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul told the UNSC on Tuesday that Russia's illegal weapons trade with North Korea while being a permanent member of the UN Security Council is deplorable.
Any cooperation that directly or indirectly aids North Korea's military capability is a blatant violation of the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions and undermines non-proliferation regime.
Referring to the war between Ukraine and Russia, the minister emphasized the role of the Security Council in maintaining peace and security in the global society. Speaking in the same vein, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned the actions by Russia and its weapons suppliers, mainly Iran and North Korea.
Support from Tehran and Pyongyang is helping Putin inflict carnage, suffering, and ruin on innocent Ukrainian men, women, and children.
Blinken urged Moscow to adhere to the rulings of the UN.
These actions by Iran, North Korea, and Russia have violated multiple Security Council resolutions. Resolutions that Russia voted for and, as a permanent member, has a special responsibility to enforce.
Meanwhile, Cho Hyun-dong, the Korean ambassador to the U.S., warned on Tuesday of North Korea's potential provocations during the upcoming period of change within the U.S. administration following its November presidential election. Cho further urged Seoul and Washington to work together to maintain an around-the-clock response system against Pyongyang, mentioning North Korea's recent moves announcing its new missile launchers and uranium facilities. In the past, North Korea has initiated acts of provocation ahead of major political events in the U.S. In the case of any similar provocation this fall, Seoul and Washington are expected to respond according to their mutually agreed response manuals, depending on the type of provocation. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
The top diplomats of South Korea and Cuba have held talks for the first time since the two countries established diplomatic ties earlier this year. South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul and his Cuban counterpart Bruno Rodriguez Varela met in New York on Tuesday local time on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The two sides discussed a wide range of bilateral issues, including plans to set up embassies in each other's capital cities by the end of this year. Cuba, which has been and continues to be a close ally of North Korea, officially formed diplomatic relations with South Korea in February. China has test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time in decades, amid heightened tensions with the U.S. and its allies. The country's defense ministry said Wednesday that an ICBM carrying a dummy warhead successfully fell into a designated area in the Pacific Ocean. It said the test was not directed at any specific country, adding that it notified relevant countries in advance. This is the first time that China has publicly announced an ICBM test in the Pacific Ocean in 44 years since 1980. Pundits say the latest test may have been an apparent warning to the AUKUS trilateral security partnership between the US, the UK, and Australia. In other news, the 2024 US presidential election will take place on November 5th. And while the latest polls point to a potential victory for Vice President Kamala Harris,
the race looks to be too close for comfort. Lee Seung-jae has more.
With around 6 weeks to go until the U.S. presidential elections in November, many pundits expect the race to be one of the closest. However, recent election polls show contrasting results, making it even more difficult to predict the outcome of the presidential race. According to the results of a poll conducted by CNN and SSRS from September 19th to the 22nd on 2,074 registered voters across the U.S., Democratic Party candidate Kamala Harris received 48% support, while Republican Party candidate Donald Trump received 47%. However, the lead was much larger in a recent poll conducted by Reuters and Ipsos. The poll conducted on 1,029 people nationwide from September 21st to the 23rd, Harris received 47% support, while Trump received 40%, showing a 7 percentage point lead for the U.S. vice president. With such a tight race, winning key battleground states will be crucial for the candidates. However, even among the 7 battleground states, both Harris and Trump are neck and neck, with many results within the polls' margins of error. A recent poll by the New York Times and Siena College showed Trump with marginal leads in 3 of the 7 contested states, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Harris also leads Trump in 3 states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, while the 2 candidates are tied in Nevada. A total of 94 electoral votes are up for grabs in those 7 battleground states. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In July, South Korea saw the largest increase in the number of births in almost 12 years. The number of marriages, a key factor affecting birth rates, also reached a record high for July. Shin-Young explains. The number of births in South Korea in July rebounded to the 20,000 range for the first time in 6 months. Data from Statistics Korea released on Wednesday showed that there were 20,601 births, a 7.9% increase compared to the same month last year. This is the largest monthly year-on-year increase since October 2012. An official from the agency attributed the rise in July to a base effect from low birth rates the previous year, as there was a 6.8% year-on-year decrease in July last year. The growth was also due to more couples getting married after postponing their wedding during the earlier stages of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The rise in July is due to a surge in marriages after COVID-19, which picked up from August 2022 to March 2023. Typically, it takes about 2 years after marriage to have the first child.
The number of deaths rose 0.4%, bringing the natural decline in population to more than 7,600. Meanwhile, the number of marriages in July rose 32.9% to over 18,000. This is the biggest year-on-year increase for any July since data was first collected in 1981, and overall it's the largest in 28 years since January 1996, when there was a 50.6% increase. The official said that the sharp rise in the number of marriages was a positive sign, as it could lead to more births in the future. Shin-Young, Arirang News. In efforts to fight the low birth rate, President Yoon Suk-yeol says small to medium companies that create a family-work balance could get tax benefits and have deferments in tax audits. This came on Wednesday as he hosted the 4th Emergency Population Policy meeting with the Presidential Committee on Aging Society and Population Policy at the Korea Federation of SMEs. This meeting focused on successful instances by companies that were able to incorporate an atmosphere for employees to balance both family and work. Yoon emphasized that doing this is not just spending money, but an investment for the future of the companies, while pledging the government's support. The OECD says the global economy is set to remain resilient, with inflation continuing to moderate in its latest outlook for the global economy and G20 countries. South Korea's economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year. Let's take a look at the details. The OECD forecasts that the global economy will remain resilient, with inflation continuing to moderate.
According to its latest interim economic outlook, Turning the Corner, released on Wednesday, the global economy is expected to grow by 3.2% both in 2024 and 2025. This year's projection is up by 0.1 percentage point from the previous forecast made this May. Inflation is projected to further ease, with consumer prices expected to rise 5.4% this year and 3.3% in 2025, which will contribute to real wage growth and an expansion in private consumption. As for a specific country and region, the U.S. is expected to grow by 2.6% this year and 1.6% in 2025, as the Fed recalibrates monetary policy to avoid a recession. In terms of the Eurozone, real wage growth and loosened monetary policy are projected to support growth of 0.7% this year and 1.3% in 2025. Meanwhile, in China, government stimulus measures are expected to offset weakened demand and a slowdown in the real estate sector, with growth of 4.9% in 2024 and 4.5% in 2025. As for the South Korean economy, it is projected to grow steadily by 2.5% in 2024 and 2.2% next year, with exports aided by the ongoing strength in global semiconductor demand. Inflation is expected to be 2.4% in 2024 and 2% in 2025, aligning with forecasts from major domestic and international institutions. The OECD cited trade tensions due to geopolitical risks, growth deceleration from a cooling labor market, and excessive volatility in financial markets if inflation easing falls short of expectations, as several downside risks to global economic growth. It advised central banks to keep lowering policy rates if inflation eases and labor market pressure is low. On the fiscal policy side, it stressed the need for decisive efforts to ensure debt sustainability in the medium term in preparation for future fiscal needs.
Korea's largest hydrogen exhibition kicked off today to showcase the latest alternatives to fossil fuels amid the global campaign to reduce carbon footprints. Our Lee Soo-jin was there.
In the global quest to create a low-carbon future, hydrogen energy is a crucial renewable resource for reducing emissions. And the latest hydrogen technologies are on display at the 5th H2 Mobility Energy Environment Technology Expo. This year's H2 meet is the largest yet, featuring 317 companies and institutions from 24 different countries in attendance, and takes place in the city of Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province from Wednesday to Friday.
Our country, along with the private sector, is working to lead the global hydrogen economy. We aim to expand hydrogen-powered buses and trucks to meet larger-scale demand and steadily build infrastructure, such as liquefied hydrogen refueling stations.
To back these initiatives, the government plans to have 660 hydrogen refueling stations by 2030, nearly doubling the current 332 nationwide. Expanding the availability of these stations is essential for commercializing hydrogen energy, which offers several advantages over electric vehicles.
Hydrogen vehicles can charge within 5 minutes, unlike electric cars, and can travel longer distances.
The event showcased gas tube trailers and liquid hydrogen tank trailers, which transport hydrogen to refueling stations. Gaseous hydrogen is designed for vehicles requiring rapid refueling, while liquid hydrogen is suited for heavy-duty applications such as long-distance trucks and buses. With the hydrogen market being projected to grow significantly as adoption of renewables becomes more widespread, local companies such as Hyundai Motor have already begun developing their own hydrogen value chain.
Hydrogen value chain business brand that spans from hydrogen production, storage, transportation, and application. And we are leveraging our group's affiliates, technologies, and business cases.
And on the local government level, provinces like Gyeonggi-do showcase their achievements, which include establishing hydrogen production facilities. With hydrogen a big part of the country's drive to go carbon neutral by 2050, these technologies will help push the hydrogen sector forward. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
In the country's southwestern county of Boseong-gun, there's a special class for teachers, not students, so that they learn about the local culture of Jeollanam-do province. Our Song Yujin explains what's behind all that.
Boseong in Jeollanam-do province is famous for green tea, pansori, and hemcloth. Some public school teachers in Boseong are going on field trips to experience dyeing fabric with natural materials despite the heat. The teachers are learning about local culture so that they can educate students, having experienced it beforehand.
This place has become an experience spot, so I should introduce it to my students and give them the same opportunities I had.
Boseong has various festivals each year, such as the Green Tea Festival and the 서편제 보성 소리 Festival. The Boseong Office of Education has decided that its teachers will learn not only about natural dyeing, but also pansori and tea ceremony to educate them about traditional culture.
Our teachers have to know beforehand in order to teach our children. Also, we have decided to run field trips for teachers to set a foundation to raise our children as local Boseong residents by running an intentional, localized education process.
Since Boseong is also a home base for green tea, the educational office is also planning to instruct teachers on sustainable farming. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
On the entertainment front, girl group miix will be the first K-pop act to partake as a panelist at the US Billboard Lon Music Week. The event will be held from October 14th to the 18th at the Fillmore Miami Beach in Florida. miix will attend the event on the 16th to talk about K-pop in the Latin music market. Billboard Latin Music Week is one of the biggest events in the Latin music industry. It celebrates its 35th anniversary this year.
It felt cool this morning. During the day, the temperature in Seoul rose to 28 degrees Celsius, exceeding the average temperature by about 3 degrees. Most areas will experience wide temperature gaps between day and night for the time being. There will be showers in most parts of the country tomorrow. The coastlines of Gyeongsangnam-do province and Jeju Island are expected to have about 20 millimeters, and most other parts will have around 5 millimeters. Skies will clear up from tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning, the temperature will be 20 degrees in Seoul and Gwangju and 22 degrees in Busan, which will be about 2 degrees higher than today. Daytime temperatures will be 28 degrees in Seoul and Gwangju and 30 degrees in Busan, similar to today. It will be mostly sunny in inland areas for a while, but hotter than usual weather is expected to continue. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.
진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시상에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥?
취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘은